Assalamualaikum and hi to everyone. Thank you for watching this video. So in this video, we continue on chapter 2, but we will learn about the data flow diagram. Okay. The first objective is to describe data and process modeling concept and tools, including the data flow diagram and the process description. So we will learn on how to create the data flow diagram based on the information system that we want to develop. Second, describe the symbols that being used in the data flow diagram and explain the rules of their use. So, symbols on creating the DFD will be introduced. So you can use that symbols in order to create the complete data flow diagram. And number third, draw the data flow diagram in a sequence from general to specific. So step by step on how to draw the DFD. So hopefully at the end of the video, everyone able to draw your own DFD for your own system later on. So first, we need to know what is the process model. So the part 2 is about the process modeling. If you refer to the scheme of work or lesson plan, a process model is a formal way of representing how a business operates. Okay, we play around with what is the business operations, the main operation inside the business activities. So we use the process model in order to represent the activities, the overall of how the business operate. Okay, then we can use the data flow diagram to show the process. Okay. What is data flow diagram, also known as DFD? Okay, this diagram show the business processes and the data that flows between them. So means we have a diagram that show about the processes involved in your information system and what are the data that go through from one process to another process. So it's a picture of a movement of data between the external entities and the processes and the data stores within a system. So external entities means an object that related to your business information system. Okay, for example, if you want to create online store, so that is the online store or ordering system. Okay, that is your IS information system. Then the external entity could be a customer. And then between the customer and your information system, there are several data. Okay, customer will give or provide several data to your information system. And then your information system will process and store the data to the database. So data store is referred to the database. Okay. That means in each of the process, we have the input data and we also have the output data. Okay. Before we able to draw the DFD, we need to know the symbols that we can use to represent process, to represent the data flow, to represent the data store, and to represent the external entity. So let's look to the symbols of the DFD. Okay, in this version, in this slide, we show two versions. The first part is from the Gin and Sarsen symbols, another one from the Jordan symbol. So basically, usually we will use the Gin and Sarsen symbol, okay, the left side compared to the right side. Okay, so this symbol is referred to the process involved in your business information system. Okay, for the gain and success. For the Jordan symbol, we have a circle. So circle refer to the process. And then for the data flow, it's quite similar. Okay, we have the activities here, bank deposit, and then arrow. So this is a symbol to do the or to represent the data flow from one to another. Okay, for Jordan also similar symbol. And then for the data store or database, okay, or table in the database, okay, the symbol is like this. Okay, this one for the gain and success, we have one line here. Okay, and for the Jordan, still rectangle part but without a small rectangle here. And next part is about the external entities. So we have the square here. So this one look like a box, a quite look like a cube, and this one is a square for external entities. So external entity is refer to the object that related to the information system, which your system that you want to develop. Okay, the next part, we go on each symbol. So first is about the process symbol. So process receive the input data and produce the output data. Okay, and let's say we do the ordering system. So a customer will provide ordering data to the ordering process, and then ordering process will process the data and produce, for example, produce confirm the order. Okay, that are the output of the ordering process. And process contain business logic, which refer to the business rules that transform the data. So this is the symbol for the process in your business information system that will represent using the DFD, data flow diagram. Okay, the next symbol is data flow. Okay, we have the activities name and the arrow. So data flow is a path for a data to move from one part to another. Okay, it's represent one or more item. Okay, example here, student ID or student profile. Okay, data flow. So this is how we use the data flow symbol. Okay, it's become the input to the process and then it will generate the output. So service perform, invoice, submitted work, graded work. Okay, we have the data and then we go through the process and then we have another data. So data flow, it show about the flow of the data in your system. The next part is the incorrect way you use the symbol for data flow. Okay, for example here, okay, this one from right to left. So this is incorrect one. Okay, this also incorrect one. And then this also incorrect one. Okay. The symbol is right. The symbol is good. However, the process are not suitable or not logical with the data input. That's why this part is incorrect. Okay, this one is spontaneous generations. We have process apply insurance premium, but the policy numbers are not the right flow. Okay, we cannot have output without any input. So that's why this is incorrect. And then this one is black hole. Everything just goes to the system without the output. And then this part we call as the gray hole because the type of data that become the input to this process are not suitable or not logical with the system or process. Okay, The next part is about the data store symbol. So data store symbol, we have the rectangle and one line here. So the data store represent the data that being stored in your system or in the database. So these are the correct way if we want to use the data store. So it's we have one process that generate the output. So the output will be stored in the data store. Then we have process which is prepare deposit. So in order to prepare the deposit, it will take the input data from the data store. Another example here, process involved is create a invoice. So invoice will be stored in the account receivable. So these details of the invoice will be used for the payment process, and then this post payment process will generate the payment detail and store to the same data store. Another example here, we have the process of admit patient. So admission form will be data from the admission form. Admission form, okay, will be stored in the patient data store. And then for the process diagnose the patient, it will take the detail from this patient. Okay, and then for this treatment patient, after you treat the patient, the treatment will be stored in the same database. So this is how we use the data store in the DFD. The next one is the incorrect way when we use the data store. So you cannot have data store and data store. Okay, we cannot have data store courses become the input to another data store. Okay, this one is incorrect. Okay, for this one, we have post payment as the process, and then customer payment it store to the daily payment. So this one is not a logic. And then we have book flight from the data to the process. Okay, a flight request means passenger request a flight request to the book flight. Okay, this one is not the right way. Okay, if we do the flight request, supposedly it come from the customer as the external entities to the process, and the process will get the data or store the data to the passengers. Okay, that's for the data symbol. Okay, the next one for the entity symbol, it look like a cube here, box. Okay, customer, bank, and customer. So these are the external entity. So external entity will interact with the process. Okay, so it is. So customer make a payment to the process of apply payment, prepare deposit process, need to produce the output to the bank. Okay, customer as the external entity make an order. So the process is verify order and generate the invoice to the customer. Okay, another example here, we have the employee. Employee give the input to the process for verifying the time card. And then for process of create a paycheck will produce output to the employee. So employee able to see the paycheck. So this is how we use the entity symbol in the DFD. Okay, the next slide show the incorrect way. Okay, you cannot have the external entity with the external entity. Okay, payroll department to the employee. Okay, we cannot have this kind of data representation. Why? Okay, logically, when we have the information system, the external entity do not directly contact or meet the other user. Okay, for example, we have the payroll department Okay, payroll department is one of the user of the system, and then employee also one of the user of the system. If we talk about the system, they will go through the system in order to communicate with the other users. So that is the logically. That's why external entity and cannot being directly, or the data flow cannot be directly from external entity to another external entity. Okay, the next one we have the customer make a payment to the account receivable. So external entity direct to the data store. It must go through the system. Okay, if you make an ordering or make a payment, example, you use the Shopee or the Lazada application, you make a payment, you doesn't store the data directly to the database. Okay, it must go through the process of payment itself. Then after the process done, the process will store the data to the database. That is the logically when we deal with the system. Okay, the same goes for this part. From the data go to the external entity. It must go to the process first before it goes to the entity. That are the things that you need to bear in your mind when you want to create your DFD for your later project. Okay, these are the correct way and the incorrect way example of the data flow. Okay, process to process can be, this one is correct. Process to external also correct. Process to data store also can. Okay, however, we cannot have the external entity to the external entity. We cannot have external entity to the data store. And we cannot have data store to the data store. So this is the things, the rules that you need to remember when you want to draw your own data flow diagram later on. Okay, another rule here, we have A until M. So A, you cannot have output without the input. For the process, you must have input and it can produce the output. You cannot only have the input without the output. Okay, for B. And then for C, you cannot have from data store to another data store. So it must go through the process. Okay, next, you cannot have from the external entity to the data store. Okay, external must go through the process and then go to the data store. Okay, from data store cannot go to the entity. Data store must go to the process first and then go to the entity. Okay, from entity cannot go to the entity. You must have the process between the external entity. Okay, the next part, you cannot have process to the data store with one with one error with two direction. Okay, you must write this one, you must draw like this one. Okay, this one is the process, one arrow, and then from the data store another arrow. Cannot use this arrow. Okay, the next one, if we have three processes, okay, and we have two data flow, we cannot combine like this one. We have A, and then from A we put B. This one is not acceptable. Okay, if you want to use this kind of arrow, so it must be the same data flow. Okay, the next one, let's say we have three processes. Okay, we cannot have two different data flow that from this arrow, this process, the arrow goes to another arrow. This one cannot be acceptable. However, if the data flow is the same data flow, then it can be used. And this one, okay, we cannot have the process that generate the output and the output become the input. So instead of using this one, okay, you need to come out with this kind of diagram. So these are several things that you need to remember when you want to draw your own DFD diagram based on your own system later on. So the next video we learn on how to drawing the DFD step by step from the general part until the details, more specific on your system. So that's all for the first video. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.